Have you noticed how quickly AI has become commonplace, ordinary, accepted, run-of-the-mill even? At the start of this year being 2023 incidentally, if you're watching this from the smouldering ruins of a decaying metropolis in our dystopian future, we were all shocked by what these systems were capable of. And now, just 6 months later, it's just part of the furniture. And I use the phrase AI in its very broadest sense here, of course, just as a simple shorthand catch-all term to describe these new systems that leverage machine learning and generative procedures. I know that none of them are actually intelligent yet, and for that, I am extremely thankful. But I've been keeping tabs on how things are progressing. The number of these systems have multiplied, their capabilities are improving, and their uptake is accelerating. And so I thought I'd bring you all an update on the AI photography takeover as it is now, and what perhaps we might expect within the near future. Who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. Now, firstly, if you think AI is all dodgy hands, weird-looking eyes, cats in top hats and anime teenage assassins with dinner plate-sized eyes, then you really haven't been paying attention, my friend. When I first discussed the subject of generative image systems on this channel at the start of this year, the comments section was fairly evenly divided. On the one side, you had the people who thought I was, to simplify the responses, overstating the situation. And on the other side, you had the people who shared my pessimistic outlook on the subject. I can understand why some folks thought I was overstating the situation, because it's a fairly standard human response. History has repeatedly shown that when confronted with something completely revolutionary, the easy option is to simply dismiss it. But I've never been a fan of burying my head in the sand and hoping that something will just go away. So let's take a look at precisely where we are now in late June 2023 with these generative art systems and how close they're getting to replacing photography. The most obvious difference between now and the start of the year is that the number of generative and machine learning systems has exploded. Back then, there were basically 3 big players in the game: Midjourney, Stable Diffusion, and DALL-E. Now there are probably hundreds of services ranging from niche systems doing things like outpainting to general purpose ones. Leonardo, Bing, Adobe, Firefly, Blue Willow, Instant Art, Night Cafe, Lexica, Playground, Artbreeder, Deep AI, Canva, Leap AI, Prodia, Lensa, and Starry AI are just a few of the systems you can find online. Seems to me like there's an arms race underway. It was a dodgy DALL-E image uploaded to a landscape photography group on Facebook that first introduced me to the fakery that was already well underway within landscape photography circles. Once you knew what to look for, those DALL-E dupes were pretty easy to spot. But let me tell you, friends, times have changed. I tested the latest 5.2 version of Midjourney, and rather than simply magic up images out of thin air, I decided to try and emulate existing photographers' work. I began by recreating a style of photo that I see a lot on Instagram these days. These pastel tone shots are sometimes high key and sometimes not, but they all share one thing in common. You would not have any fucking idea where they were actually taken, because they all look the fucking same. Here's an example of the kind of shot in question. Now, Midjourney has a real advantage here, because these kind of landscape shots already look like they were rendered in Unreal Engine, so it's a piece of piss to rip them off. How about this? These drone shots are a walk in the park for Midjourney to magic up, but here's a pro tip. If you really want to sell this image, then make sure you add a bit of film grain in your photo editor of choice. I use the AI artist's favourite tool, Luminar Neo, to dirty the image up a bit, add some grain and a few other little tells to make it a bit more convincing. It worked pretty well on this image too, although the waves around the surface still look a bit suspect. But check out that fast aperture, slightly out of focus water near the front of the image. If you were thinking of selling photographs but had no aptitude for photography or, access to dreamily scenic coastal locations, then Midjourney is surely a dream come true. Knock out a few shots, set up the old Redbubble account, hire an Instagram bot, and off you go. That ain't working. That's the way you do it. Here's a shot I see regularly on Instagram. Your classic curling wave shot. The ambiguous nature of these images and the fact that they have absolutely no locational giveaways make them the perfect choices for AI bullshit. But what about when the location is important? Like in this famous shot by the most famous landscape photographer of all, Ansel Adams. Except, of course, it's not Ansel Adams, is it? I just used one of his photos with the Describe tool in Midjourney and then generated my own version. Obviously, an art collector's not going to buy it, but at the risk of putting the idea in someone's head, if you wanted to sell Ansel Adams prints online, this is a great way to do it and not end up getting sued by his estate. I had a bit of fun trying to emulate a bunch of well-known landscape photographers. Can you tell who the inspiration behind these photos was? More importantly, can you see that they're fake? Could you see if I hadn't told you they were fake? Honestly, every time I thought I'd seen the extent of Midjourney's capabilities, it surprised me. Look closely at this photo, generated from a well-known shot by a well-known photographer, and tell me honestly that you can see through its computer-generated charms. Can't afford to go to Patagonia? Don't worry about it. You can create some pretty compelling-looking photographs from the comfort of your back bedroom. I've been testing the latest iteration of Midjourney with a wide variety of landscape photos to see where it's doing better and where it still has room to improve. The fake nature of these images becomes apparent when you zoom in and pixel peep some of them, but others, like this one, are virtually impossible to tell apart from the real thing. No weird artifacting, no over-sharpened edges. It looks every bit as kosher at 300% as it does at 100%. This is all pretty disturbing, right? The fact that you can now generate near-perfect versions of famous photographs and there's nothing that anyone can do to stop you. One of the most obvious uses for these generative systems is product photography. In fact, I remember when I was making my initial video about this subject that I watched a couple of advertising photographers use Midjourney to create a print ad for a whiskey that would otherwise have cost them serious money to do the old-fashioned way. So rest assured that it's already being heavily used in those industries. And as with the other kinds of imagery, Midjourney's ability to create product imagery has improved greatly. Shots like this one for a car are undertaken by the kind of advertising agencies that have office space in the centre of big cities. But I was able to recreate a recent campaign with a simple Describe command. When you combine these new images with the new generative fill tool in Photoshop, you can get rid of the junky looking text that Midjourney often generates and replace it with an actual logo. This generative shot of a watch had some junky logo text on the face, but the generative fill removed it with ridiculous ease. Then it was just a case of sticking a slightly more accurate logo in there and Bob's the living lodger. In this case, I emulated a product photo shoot for a cookbook, removed the junk text with generative fill, and then easily added my own text to complete the image. But I could equally just delete the book entirely and place a full photo or render of the book on the background. No more dicking about building up a range of props to use in an actual studio. No need for marble look effect tables. No need for tasty looking salad. No need for any actual effort at all. It turns out that the developers behind systems like Midjourney have been working on all aspects of their systems, not just the actual image generation, but the supporting toolset like the aforementioned describe command. One key issue with Midjourney and most other generative systems is that at the moment they output fairly low resolution files. In fact, Midjourney is still outputting at 1024 by 1024. So to get around that, I used, yes, you've guessed it, an AI upscaler to increase these images to print resolutions. Every one of these shots was run through Topaz Gigapixel AI, which is far and away the best upscaler for these kinds of shots thanks to its CGI option. One of the common and accurate criticisms of systems like Midjourney is they tend to bollocks up humans. This often becomes apparent when you realise they only have 3 fingers, some weird looking eyes, or a third leg sprouting out of their groin like a resident of Chernobyl. And as with all the other kinds of imagery that Midjourney's rendering these days, I think you'll agree it's improved its rendering of people now too. Companies with large marketing budgets will of course continue to employ photographers and models, but can you give me a single good reason why a small business would use a stock photo image instead of simply rendering precisely what they want? All you have to do is search online until you find a photographer you like, and then you can get Midjourney to emulate that style. In this case, and a couple of the preceding ones, that photographer was Robert Mapplethorpe. Perhaps you already guessed that. There's no skill required on my part whatsoever to emulate the style of well-known photographers, and I don't even have to pay a cent in royalties to anyone. It really doesn't matter what that style is. Midjourney has gotten very good at recreating all of them. There are far fewer flaws in these fake images, and it takes fewer re-rolls to get close to the image you want. In my previous videos, I suggested that the possibilities for this technology to completely and totally undermine our faith in reality were numerous. Needless to say, those capabilities have only grown over the last 6 months or so, and consequently, my faith in the veracity of the images I'm seeing online has gone down too. Using a system like Midjourney, it is frighteningly easy to create any narrative you want, to push any false portrayal you like, and I mean ludicrously easy. The prompt to create these images of vagrant Boris Johnson was literally 5 words long. Boris Johnson as a vagrant. That's it. Midjourney did the rest. Remember when they were talking about this new fucking job of prompt engineer? Like there'd be some special 21st century skill set required to get precisely the images you wanted? Do me a favour, there's no skill, no knowledge set required at all. You literally just tell it what you want and it does that. No matter who it is, generative systems like Midjourney continue to evolve and improve. Alleged rapist and human trafficker and 100% confirmed narcissistic fucktard Andrew Tate looks rather fetching in his ballerina's outfit, doesn't he? Last time I tested Midjourney like this, it was already pretty good at generating images of certain well-known individuals. But what's improved now is the ability to place that individual within a specific environment, doing a specific thing. You do get the sense that companies like Adobe are treading very carefully though. It took 5 different selections to fix the messed up hands of the guy standing to the right of my Fendi wearing Pope, because I was told that doing so went apparently against the guidelines. Pretty specialised use case that though, isn't it? Adobe, you can generate any image you want. also Adobe, unless it's switching out the deformed hands of a generative man in a fake image of Pope Francis wearing a Fendi outfit. I do sometimes wonder if there are hidden rule sets behind Midjourney's text prompt facade that stop you dicking about too much with specific individuals. For this prompt, I wanted a weak-looking image of that repellent shithead Elon Musk, but it kept making him look his usual boss-eyed, repugnant, vampiric self instead. We haven't yet arrived at the point where these systems spit out images that are 100% ready to go without any tweaks. Midjourney did a pretty good job of sticking Prince Harry in the old drive-through window. I'd have had to go and tidy up all those weird-looking Macca's-style logos. Being able to place vile shit stains like Ron DeSantis within particular environments honestly seems like a dream come true for anyone looking to damage the reputation, or total lack of it in this case, of a celebrity. Amongst the claimed improvements in this latest version of Midjourney are tweaks to face fidelity and improved detail when viewed in close-up. And I have to say, it did a pretty good job on old mate Vladimir, didn't it? As you can see, these systems continue to develop and to undermine many types of photography. Last time around, you guys correctly suggested that it wasn't about to intrude on things like wedding photography and breaking news stories, and that is, for the most part, still the case. However, now that Midjourney and the other generative systems are doing such a great job with the old face swaps, they are a growing threat. Midjourney, for instance, can now use photographs as a seed to generate other images. Feed it a source image of a couple of newlyweds, for example, and it can recreate the scene according to the prompt's directions. Generative art systems and text-based machine learning systems like ChatGPT are part of the fabric of society now. If you watch the latest Marvel Studios TV series, Secret Invasion, then you might even have noticed that the intro sequence is entirely built using generative imagery. With self-hosted autonomous text agents like Agent GPT, free porn-enabled AI checkpoints for diffusion-based models on sites like Civic AI, the first steps into generative video at Runway AI, the first steps in generative music with Google's Music LM, and myriad other services emerging on a weekly basis, generative images and machine learning services are clearly only just getting started. Which of these services are you using, if any? Do you pay for any of them, or do you prefer to keep it open source? Let me know what side you're on in this war on photography in the comments section down below. Remember to hit the like button if you enjoyed this update, and remember to subscribe for more of my spin-free content. Till the next time, guys, ta-ta.